There we go. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And we can, I'm going to make a motion to approve change that we will have the presentation, present the PowerPoint before we go into executive session. I'll need a second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Let's go ahead and do the pledge. Okay, so now we come to our portion of public comments. And before we do that, I need you guys to try to restrain yourself and not commenting on what somebody else is saying. Give them their 2 minutes. And if you've filled out a paper, they will give you your 2 minutes. We need to, I guess if you feel the need, we could have, I know it's being on YouTube, so you could sit in the comfort of your home and yell at that way, I guess, if you feel like you need to. So please, let's be considerate. So we're gonna do a half an hour of public comments this time, and it's gonna be 2 minutes, and we will time you. So we're gonna try to get through the in-person, then go to the ones online. So first is Rebecca Walker.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Walker. I'm here representing my friend Erin and myself. We both have 2 kids in school. My son has severe ADHD. Her daughter has severe ADHD. She homeschooled her daughter for several years before her doctor and her daughter's pediatrician told her that she's not able to be in or homeschool her child anymore due to medical health reasons because of the stress of doing so with her needs that need to be met. So she enrolled her in the school this year only to find out that, hey, when we're not doing in-person learning, we're doing it virtual. This child has never been in front of a computer before, doesn't know how to type, doesn't know any words, doesn't know how to spell. They've given something that gives a voice to text so that way they can at least communicate with the teacher, but she has no idea what to be done. My son as well is really struggling with the virtual learning. He has really hard time staying focused, talking to the teacher, standing up, getting up, walking away. Even with the breaks that the teacher has allotted, it makes it really hard for him to be able to learn the things that the teacher is even trying to teach in the first place. He needs to have that direction, that physical ability to be there. Now, working as well as being able to having to be home with the children is making it really difficult for me to make sure that my children stay on task. That I don't have that ability to be home all the time. I'm working, I'm earning money, but I don't have the ability or the capabilities to put my whole life on hold just to make sure my child has the ability to learn. Likewise with my friend Erin and her children. This is her 3-year-old son was able to start in-person learning on Monday, and it has been a wonderful experience. Our job as parents is to teach our kids how to wash their hands properly, how to wear masks properly, and how to leave the home in order to grow and learn in society. It is teachers' jobs to teach the children the things that they need to learn in life as well. It is not my job to be able to... Okay.
Amanda DeMoss.
Okay, so I just want to say I've been at the last 2 meetings and I'm hoping that we have better news today. Again, I have 2 kids at Symington and it's rough. It's not gotten any better. These kids are frustrated. They hate school. I have to print out their assignments, which I've started doing, which is helping. But they need to be back in the classroom. And I'm hoping that there's something that I can do to work with the board, to work with the 100+ teachers that don't feel safe or don't want to come back. My second grader tries to problem solve on how she can get back in the classroom. And I don't see the same problem solving coming from the teachers that don't want to come back. Maybe it is, I just don't see it. So I'm hoping that maybe you guys can give some insight on whether these teachers are even trying to make an effort on, there's got to be a way to do both, whether it's they go 2 days a week, there's just got to be a way to get some of these kids at least part-time back in the classroom, if not full-time. So I'm here, I'm willing to work with the board, I'm willing to work with the teachers, but there's got to be a way, and there's several other parents that are willing to do this. So I think at this point, we need to figure out what that is and what teachers can be teaching in person and what teachers are going to teach online. There's got to be a way. And I'm hoping that with whatever's going to go on tonight, that you guys can put some insight to that, because I think that's where we're at. We can't continue, okay, we'll see in a week, we'll see in 2 weeks, we'll see. It's not working. It's not working. These kids aren't getting the education that they need. I spend all evening with them to get them what they need, to make sure that they're doing their things. As a parent, that's my job. I understand that, just as I would do their homework. But I need these kids to be taught, and 4 hours a day, my kids are like, well, they're moving too fast. So they have tons of assignments that I'm then doing with them.
Margaret Smith?
I am the parent of a high schooler and an elementary schooler. My elementary schooler is also ADHD, and I am a parent who is in the high-risk groups to catch COVID. I have medical issues. So when the schools closed down, that was a blessing to me because I didn't have to make that decision whether to pull my child out or not. Now that we've been on this track for a while, I can see that it was selfish of me to feel that way because my ADHD child is suffering. He doesn't like to be on the computer for 3 solid hours a day. He can't handle that amount of time and focus. But on the flip side, as a parent who is in a high-risk category, I need to know what are the steps for in-person learning that are going to make it safe for my child and everybody else's child to be in the classroom together. How is cleaning going to happen during the day? Who's going to do it? Is there more staff going to be hired? What about passing for high schoolers and middle schoolers? Are they going to be allowed more time between classes so that the classrooms can be sanitized properly? Those are some of the questions that I have that I've not heard addressed. You know, I mean, all the personal stories in the world will break your heart, but when it comes down to it, if we're going to get these kids back into the classroom, those are the things I need as a parent to make the decision to send them back in person or to keep them home. Thank you.
Okay. Annie Colgra, is that right?
Can I take this off to speak? Hi. I want to start by saying I don't envy you guys. I know that you're taking a lot of heat, and I appreciate you being here and taking everything into consideration. I have a high schooler who I have chosen to keep home because we have high-risk people in our household. And however, I do believe that school needs to be back in for the kids who have issues, for the kids who have ADHD, for, you know, these poor kids are struggling. My question is, as far as the teachers juggling their time, they're going to be teaching in person and online and trying to teach a curriculum all at the same time. That's challenging. And I know this personally because I'm in school also, and my teachers who are teaching the online people, they're saying, okay, are you good? And they're looking at the people in person, okay, are you good? Are you good? Okay, so let's move on. And it's so time consuming and it's not productive at all whatsoever. So I'm curious how that's going to be played out. Are there going to be specific teachers, specific times to teach online versus in person? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Thomas Chavez?
Okay, let me just first say that we love our teachers, we love our community, and we just can't wait to get back in class. So, I was here last week and touched on a subject of concern. My concern of teachers using their classrooms as a platform to further their political agenda. It was last Monday, the first day back, from teachers who called out sick. I just got home from work, found time to listen in on some virtual learning. During the subject hour, with less than 10 minutes left, the teacher asked the students, "What do you think of the COVID-19 pandemic?" With no response or participation from the class, the teacher begins her idea or her opinion about it, saying, "We all need to be concerned because it's deadly and it's something we should all be worried about." Then immediately asked the question, "What do you think of global warming?" The teacher began rambling about her scientific facts, saying, "We are ruining the earth." Her words, not mine. It's one thing for students to participate in open discussion amongst themselves on today's issues, but with less than 10 minutes left on the clock, I feel she used this time to politicize these issues, knowing there would not be any rebuttal. There are reasons and concerns that I consider homeschooling my kids, okay? But I cannot make that decision knowing most teachers understand the roles and the importance of quality education. Mrs. Patricia Combers, I'm sure you're a fine citizen of our community, but shame on you for using your classroom as a platform to politicize your agenda. At home, we speak on these subjects with our children, so I'm not just concerned for mine, but others. In my home and within our community, we are proud Americans who choose not to live in fear. Members of this board, I hope we can fix this problem now before it gets out of hand. In this election year, desperation to further any political agenda is unacceptable.
Thank you. Renee Ziegler?
Hi, I'm Rainey Ziegler, and I just wanted to thank the board members for all the work that you've put in. Even those that don't have the same opinions as me, I do want to truly thank you. I had 4 kids enrolled in this school district a few months ago. I now have 2 kids enrolled in the school district, and I wanted to let you know why I have 2 kids. Because they're a little bit older, and because they have worked their rear ends off. They have put in the work. They have, my 8th grader has played sports, has made a name for himself. He has had all honors classes his 7th grade year and is enrolled in all honors classes this year, and also taking a high school math credit and his high school Spanish credit. And he has a 4.57 GPA right now. And when the school district shut down school, online and in person, I was devastated. He was devastated. And I said, we need to make a change. We have to make a change. After last Wednesday, I went home, told him, good, bad, ugly, what could be for the next few months. And he got accepted to a different school district also. And he said, okay, I'll go. I'll just go there, because online's just too hard for me, Mom. I'm not staying motivated. And I said, well, here's the problem. The other school district can't get you into all your honors classes. And guess what? He said, okay, I'll stick with online, because education is that important, and he doesn't want his GPA to fall. I also have a senior. He's ranked number 2 right now at Combs High School out of 346 kids. He has played 3 varsity sports for 3 years. He has friends. He's a leader here. He has coaches that love him, teachers that love him, administrators that love him. He is a great kid. And I didn't want to touch him either. I'm like, he's a senior, I'm not going to pull him out of senior year, put him somewhere else. And guess what happened? I told him, Levi, when no education is available to you, we have to think about your education first, even though you have a starting position.
Daniela, I don't know the last name. Okay, good.
It's Indy, thank you. Dr. Wyman and members of the board, I just want to say thank you very much for your leadership. I was here the last meeting and I was shocked and appalled at the way that you were treated. And I want to let you know that as a parent of 4 Combs students, I appreciate your leadership and I appreciate the heat that you have taken and the opinions that you have expressed and the way that you have led this district. I appreciate you. I have a son who's in high school, we have a son who's in high school, we have a daughter in middle school, and we have a son and daughter in elementary school, all at Combs schools. We moved them here this year because we had been at a charter school previously, and we were so pleased with what we were seeing at Combs that we moved them here. Distance learning is not perfect. I think the teachers know, the parents know, the kids know, this is not how learning should go. However, we have the opportunity here to reinvent education. And this opportunity for parents to come alongside teachers and work along with them in educating children, I think is a wonderful thing. Again, not ideal. One of our kids tonight, we actually left him finding out that he had missed an assignment this morning that he said he had finished. And I'm sure that that's happening in households all across the neighborhood right now. However, as parents, it is our responsibility, just as if he would bring home homework, to make sure that he completes his work. So I just wanted to say that I support you. I support your decision. I support the teachers in their desire to work in a place that is safe and where they feel supported. And I want to just throw in my 2 cents that I think that it's important for us to stay closed until the benchmarks are met. I think it's important for the health of our whole community, not the select few. I would love you to consider and maybe let us know what the plan is for children with special education and 504 plans, please. Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the online ones that were submitted, and we can time those as well. Okay.
Just before I, excuse me, before I start, let me say I'm glad I brought my reading glasses tonight, or else there's no way I'd be able to do this. Okay, first one is from Maggie Wooten. I am writing to you not only as a mother and community member within the J.O. Combs district, but as a teacher as well. I found my way into teaching 8 years ago after being raised by educators who were devoted to their students during their 74 cumulative years of teaching. My husband is a teacher, my mother-in-law is a teacher. Some of my favorite people are teachers. Within this district, you have some of the best, most dedicated and passionate educators with whom I've had the privilege to work. Last year at the elementary level, my little one fell in love with her teachers. At the high school, we have worked with men and women who show up as early as 6 a.m. and who often don't leave until after 4 p.m. as they make their lesson plans, write curriculum, and invest all that they have into their students. During the 2019-2020 school year at Combs, I joined various committees both on-site and at the district level. I chaperoned dances, I built English curriculum, I took on student teaching and so much more. However, all of that pales in comparison to the connections I made with our community students. I was given the opportunity to know these kids on a deeper level and was able to see them make huge advancements academically, socially, and emotionally. It's been one of the truest honors of my life to educate these children. Now it is my time to call upon you, our governing board. I ask that you do not open our schools until they are safe. I ask that you allow teachers to have a voice in this. I ask that you work with us to build our community and our children through the support of online learning until schools are safe. I ask that you provide the teachers with the tools we need to educate the youth in the safest way possible virtually. What you don't see is that I am a mother of compromised daughter. She fell ill at only 10 days old, and I had to witness a tragedy no parent should have to witness. From Banner Ironwood, she was airlifted to Carden Children's Hospital, turned a shade of purplish gray, and flatlined right before my eyes. I was rushed out of the room so doctors and nurses could perform life-saving measures, including ventilation, in order to keep my... Okay, this next one, I hope and say this name right, is Samantha Home. The decision that the board made at the beginning of the month fractured our community. It wasn't anyone's intention, but this is a divisive and emotional topic. If I had to make this decision, I would say we're not ready, but I am not in your seat. I can keep my kids at home, and I am thankful for that. The only thing I ask of you is to keep the whole community in your thoughts as you make your decision, teachers, parents, and children. People are scared. What do people who are scared need? They need information, and they need to know that people in the position to make the decisions have their best interests at heart. I don't feel like we have enough information. By what exact metrics will we open? This should be clearly communicated. By what exact metrics will we close if there are cases found in school? This should also be clearly communicated. I beg of you to be more clear with your intentions. I beg of you to follow the scientific guidelines that were laid out for you. I beg of you to form a solid plan that everyone can understand and follow. You can't heal what was broken in our community without it. Next one is by Rachel Waddell. I work for the J.O. Combs and have my own children enrolled in the district as well. My own children are still currently enrolled because I have placed them in the hands of teachers that I know and trust. These teachers did not give my children any others false hope of coming back to school. They did not fill their heads with excitement just to take it away and attempt to get what they wanted. As educators, we are in charge of protecting all children. We hold their foundations and futures in our hands. What these union teachers have done and continue to do with our children's future is disgusting and makes me leery of calling myself an educator. These teachers have betrayed the trust of our most fragile populations. They have weakened the bonds between parents and schools. They have given public education a black eye. These children are already on the brink of collapse emotionally and socially, that this stunt has done more harm than good. The union members stated it is because they do not know the proper cleaning procedures and that they don't understand how to read a cleaning label. It was the same scripted speech from each of them. They are embarrassing themselves. Not all teachers think this way. Not all teachers are unwilling to get back to work. I ask you to open the schools. These same teachers that claim they are scared of this virus have been seen in public with their children. One child was no older than a year old. I know because I work on the same campus as this teacher and many others that have called out. It appears to be a game to them, using our children, my children, as pawns. In any other profession, this would never be tolerated. Why now? Why here? Parents are pulling their children in droves to leave this district, all because a select few are unwilling to do the jobs that they were chosen to do. I stay at Combs because of the teachers that feel the same way I do about teaching. Teaching is my passion, my identity. Watching these children learn their own worth and soar is my passion. Giving children a voice, an option, is my passion. If these imposters do not want to return, we shouldn't have to beg them. Let them go. We will figure something out. We will fill their... This next one is by Donna Loringer. Members of the governing board, I am writing to you as a grandmother of a student at one of our schools, as well as a concerned Santan Valley community member. I am pleading with you, do not open our schools until they are safe. I would like to outline specific reasons why our schools are not ready to open. 1, some janitorial staff at our schools are currently positive for COVID-19 virus. There have been multiple confirmed cases of several of our schools, including teachers, classified staff, and even district office personnel. Please tell me, why haven't teachers and parents been informed of this reality? Number 2, doesn't the pandemic plan stipulate that foggers will be used to clean classrooms? If so, where are said foggers? To date, no school has received them. Number 3, you do realize that promised hand sanitizers does not exist in every classroom within our schools, correct? Number 4, there are 0 minutes between lunches at our high school. Realistically, how can this area be cleaned and the high-touch surfaces disinfected with no allotted time to do the job? Number 5, masks are required. Until students discover the mandate is easily ignored by simply saying, I have a medical exemption, which requires no verification whatsoever. Now what about the risk this imposes upon the staff and students who remain in a poorly ventilated room with multiple or universal unmasked students? Number 6, to take temperatures. Wouldn't staff and students be less than 6 feet apart? For many female staff, less than 2 feet, based upon arm length. Doesn't the guidelines advise 6 feet of distance? Number 7, there have been several confirmed cases within the district. at least 4 cases currently. Shouldn't the district be notifying the staff? Shouldn't the district be notifying the community? Number 8, cleaning guidelines have not been given to the classified or certified staff yet. How can they be expected to clean effectively without that knowledge? Number 9, a person who tests positive doesn't even need a negative test to return to school, so they can simply claim they haven't shown any symptoms. This next one is from Laura Brewer. My son is a kindergartner. He is autistic and he also has an IEP. Unfortunately for him, virtual learning has been nothing short of a nightmare. He is not eligible to go in person with the current in-person learning for students with special needs because he is not part of a self-contained classroom. But the fact is, he is right for FAPE, free appropriate public education, and it isn't being met. He needs me to sit by his side the entire time during the 10 to 1 school hours, and I'm constantly battling him to sit, to redirect, and the countless meltdowns he has. He also refuses to do any of his therapy services he receives through school online. He doesn't do well with virtual. At this point, I have stopped logging him into class, and I do his daily assignments with him throughout the day. He is not getting any education this way. I have reached out to the superintendent twice, his school, and teachers, but I feel like I am begging at this point, and it's falling on deaf ears. You are failing my son. This next one is from Christy Galt. Good evening. My name is Christy Galt, and I am the parent of 3 children in the Combs District, grades K, 3, and 9. I would like to ask that in-person learning start on Monday the 31st. My children are all struggling between connectivity issues and not understanding what's going on most of the time. My son is in 9th grade and has ADHD. He can't function in virtual learning, and is withdrawn and emotional. I know I have limited time, so I want to get to the point. Our zip code 85140, as of today, has less than 650 total cases of COVID-19 since March. I have no faith in the metrics because it is built to fail no matter how you look at it. It is lagging 2 weeks plus, however many days results are behind, which at one point was 17 days, making the data a month old. That means if you rely only on this information and there is a second wave shutdown, could be postponed over 30 days for the metrics to show red. I believe our district should look at our most recent local data and open. I have been forced to take leave from my employment and do virtual learning, so our household is struggling financially and emotionally, and our children are not learning. Virtual instruction is getting worse, and the kids no longer have any interest at all. I have little faith that this will improve, as my daughter's 3rd grade teacher is now down to 5 kids per 30-minute session to do their live meeting because the program will not work correctly and with everyone at once. Although in-person learning may not be right for everyone, it is right for my children and my family. Please consider us and other families like us in your decision. Thank you. This one is a long one. This one is from Mary. There was no last name printed, but Simon was written in, so I'm not sure. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my comments. In order for any organization to reopen successfully, 2 things must happen. Employees and customer students must be provided both physical safety and psychological safety. Physical safety is easy. It includes proper sanitation, PPE, and training. Psychological safety is often ignored, but includes transparency, communication, training, and proper policies and procedures. Where is Combs at? Classrooms now have a large roll of paper towels and a labeled cleaner. They have sanitizers. They have all received a disposable mask and 2 disposable masks. That is where the good news stops. Dr. Wyan promised the board the training would take place. By definition, training is the action of teaching a person or animal a particular skill or type of behavior. Staff simply having access to 70-page pandemic response plan is not training, literally by definition. I'm reading the entire pandemic response plan, and here are the issues I've discovered that need immediate attention. Number 1, the COVID-19 communication Google Drive, page 21, has not been updated since last semester. It says to reference, but that is not current. Number 2, masks, page 16. Those staff or students who are not wearing a mask will be sent home. Again, what happens if they are allowed on a bus without one? They come to school and have their parents called to go home. Number 3, masks, page 71. Disposable face coverings masks will be made available for staff, students, or visitors who do not have a face covering mask when they arrive at school. Where do students get these? Are teachers supposed to send students to the office to get one? They were given 2 in a bag. What about after those 2 are gone? Does the school have a sufficient supply? Disposable masks have been available in large quantities for several weeks, so there should be no reason they aren't available. Exception, exemption. The exemptions listed are pretty standard. However, it does not state what is needed in order to be granted an exemption. Can a student simply say they have a medical? This last one is from Nathan Cox. According to the state of Arizona, Pinal County now does not meet 2 of the health benchmarks. We have gone backwards on the first benchmark and have not met the week 2 standard for the second. We are also seeing COVID-19 outbreaks in other districts around the state and at ASU. We are not ready for in-class instruction. Because of this, we need to continue doing online learning. I believe the safest way to teach our children right now is online. The thing is, the district needed to install the proper equipment to allow 100% online learning before online learning started. The issue with the district's internet aren't acceptable. Since school has started back up, there have been major issues with connectivity. Even after you stagger the online learning hours to relieve some stress on the current servers, we will still see major connectivity issues. My children's now 3 hours of scheduled online teaching, teacher-led instruction, is really only about 2 hours on average due to the ongoing connectivity issues. I am very concerned about the lack of education your district is offering our children. The lack of quality education is not on the teachers. They are amazing and trying their best with the clear lack of resources you have given them. Resources being proper internet. I understand the district has new equipment ordered and on the way, but that does not help us today. If the internet at schools is not sufficient, why let those teachers who have reliable, high-speed internet at home work from home? There is significant possibility that having these teachers work from home, taking their students off the district service, could resolve the majority of the major issues we're currently seeing. Our kids be getting more than just a few hours uninterrupted teaching-led instruction each day. I hope you take my suggestions into consideration, as it would help resolve some of the major issues we're having with online learning at this time. Thank you for your time. And that was the last one.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so before we go into executive session, we're going to go ahead and do the PowerPoint that you have got.
The following PowerPoint, board members, is and relative to the questions you asked last meeting. You can either follow along on your screens, or if you want to turn and look and see what's behind you, you can do it either way. I will go ahead and let you know when I'm moving forward, so we'll move to the first slide. One of the questions that was asked was to determine what's been the impact on the number of students we have. Just so you know, a couple different things are taking place within these numbers. First and foremost, the 10th day, in the state of Arizona, there's a law that says if students don't show up for 10 consecutive days, then you have to withdraw them. That 10th consecutive day would have been on last Thursday, so we had to withdraw those students. So the numbers up here are not all indicative necessarily of students that may have left our district due to any decision that was made by the board. It's a case that in some cases they had not shown up, they may have moved away. They were part of the students in the student database last spring that got rolled over, and so they'd be withdrawn. But you can see that we have had a drop. This is the 4th week comparison from last year to this year, and you can see that overall there's a drop of 473 kids. When you look at the various schools, it changes depending on the school. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but you can see that there is a significant loss in the number of kids. Again, not necessarily related all to any decision made, because some of these students never showed up. Okay, I'm going to switch to the next slide. I'm also doing that so it links up with the YouTube channel. This particular one gives you the grade comparison. And you will see that of the number of students there in the grade comparison, the pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade takes up just approximately 253 of the 473 kids that did not show up. In many cases, that may be a case where parents made a decision because of the age of the child not to put the child in school and to homeschool it. Obviously, it's easier to homeschool children at an earlier age than it is at an older age. So that's just a little over 50% of the students that the loss of the 473 would be at these grade levels. And then it varies. If you look again, the transition from 8th to 9th, there was a significant loss, but at sophomore level, there was a gain. So it varies from grade level to grade level, but it gives you an idea of what the 473 at each school translates into as a grade. Now, please understand if we were to go ahead and take a look at the 15 kids in second grade that are not here, that's across 5 schools. So it could be, you know, three kids a school, or one school may have 5 kids gone, another school may only have 1. Okay. To give you another look, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the next slide. This just gives you the comparison against the cohort. So what we mean by that is, if I'm in second grade last year and I moved to third grade this year, how many students have we lost in that transition? And this gives you a different look to see what occurs as we move the kids through the system. In the first year, you see a gain of 53. That may be because coming into kindergarten, some kids did not join us for preschool that would have joined us for kindergarten. Again, you're going to see a significant loss in the cohort moving from kindergarten to first to second. That would coincide with those decisions that we saw on the other slide to maybe not bring their students back, because it's easier to go ahead and homeschool younger kids and older kids. Again, not a pattern per se, different grade levels. Had less students leave, other grade levels had more, but again, spread out over, with the exception of the middle school and the high school, multiple schools. Then, as I slide to the next slide, this is more, you've asked for this in the past. It does not necessarily have a comparative nature to it, but you'd ask what are the different numbers of students at each grade level within the various schools, and that's what this particular slide is showing. Again, not comparative, just something that we provided in previous board meetings, so I wanted to provide it in this board meeting. Before I move on to other slides, are there any particular questions that you may have over the student enrollment numbers?
What effect does that have on a budget when you lose? So if I subtract the kindergartners and the first graders, that's 290. So what impact on the budget would that have?
Okay, Carla Slavitsky's not here this week. She's on vacation, so I'll give you some rough numbers. There's a couple different factors in here that I don't know the mathematical formula for, but as a reminder, your kindergarten students, you're not paid for full-day kindergarten students, so when you take a look at the number of loss of the kindergarten students, they're funded in the state of Arizona on a half day, not on a full day. We supplement the full day process for the kids. If you were to look at just on pure numbers, given a rough estimate, it could impact us roughly $2 million. I say roughly because there's, like I say, when you have to calculate the kindergarten piece in there, and then the way it's calculated in the state of Arizona is very complicated, but it's based on the first 100 days, and we haven't got the first 100 days until January, so it's not a simplistic formula, but if you look at basically what a child would bring to you, you're going to see roughly $2 million. Now, the one thing that may be a little bit different is there is a Stabilization Act dollars from the federal government. There's a grant that we have to fill out. We're in a process of doing that. In that particular grant, they are trying to go ahead and provide for school districts across the state. If you have more kids than you had the previous year, you can get up to 5% above 105% of your budget. If you lost kids, you can get potentially up to 98% of what you had last year. So if we were to look at 98%, our rough numbers would be a loss of $600,000. So in this particular situation, you could lose anywhere between $600,000 and $2 million. We will have those numbers in the next month or so because of the process that the state asks all school districts to go through. And again, Mrs. Slavitsky's not here today. She's the one that has the specifics on the stabilization grant. But you're going to see, obviously, a loss to the district with the loss of these students. Other questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and move to the next slide. The next thing that was asked of us was a survey of staff, and so a survey of staff was conducted last week. It ran from Thursday the 20th through Monday the 24th. We had 560 total response representing all the employee types and work sites. That would represent approximately the mid-90s in terms of return rate. So it was a very good return rate for the employees. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So what you got, this just gives you the number of respondents from each group. So of all the respondents, 39% or 219 were certified staff, 57%, 319 were classified staff, and 3.9%, 22 were administrators. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. In this particular case, the question that was asked is, will you return even if the metrics are not met? In that case, 46.1% or 258 respondents indicated they would. Will you return when metrics are met? Slightly different version of that question. 221 respondents, 39.5%. And then additional concerns even if the metrics are met, and we had 14.5% or 81 respondents. So that was the main question that was asked on this particular survey. Any questions on that piece right there? Okay, next slide. As we break this out between certified and classified staff, again, we've just given it to you broken out with those particular numbers, 36.5% or 80 respondents. I gotta get myself, that was will return if metrics are met. 42% or 92 individuals will return even if the metrics are not met, and 21.5% or 40 respondents who have additional concerns, and we'll talk about those additional concerns in a second. So that's certified staff. Classified staff following that same piece, about 37%, can't quite see it from where I'm at, 129, will return even if the metrics are not met. 178 or 52% will return if the metrics are met, and then 34 respondents or 10% had some additional concerns. When we take a look at some of the groups most affected in the classroom, in terms of the certified teachers, we're asking the same three questions. We've just broken it out from that perspective. So within the certified teachers, 92 respondents or 42% going to return irrespective of what happens with the metrics. 36.5% or 80 respondents will return if the metrics are met. And then 47% or 21.5 have some additional concerns, and we'll address those in a second. Substitute teachers, we did ask the substitute teachers that we had, not all of them replied. Again, 12 respondents said doesn't matter about what the metrics are, which is 36%. 11 said we want to meet the metrics, 33% will show up, and then another 30% or 8 respondents had some additional concerns. Going to go to the next slide. Paraprofessionals, we also did the same numbers, and again, that was just because they were in the classroom, and so we're just trying to look at all the different groups. Next slide will be the concerns that were provided. There was 3 areas that were provided for questioning. And so in this particular question, there was 55 respondents. The numbers will not add up to the number of people that had response because they were allowed to do more than one response. So you may have some individuals that responded to more than one concern. But you had 55 responses about additional PPE. You had 39% or 53 responses for additional training on sanitation procedures. And then you had 20.6% or 28 respondents for additional training with the swivel devices. Okay, next slide. Then on top of that, I received any number of about 17 to 20 emails with individuals who indicated that they had additional concerns that they didn't feel like the survey addressed to the extent that it needed to be addressed. So we went ahead and read through those particular comments. In many cases, individuals had multiple concerns, and they were grouped into these particular areas. The PPE provisions and cleanliness dealt with some of the training, but they just went a little bit further relative to what they had some concerns about PPE. Training on the pandemic response plan, a little bit more specific than the training request before. In some cases, these first two overlapped a little bit of the previous question, but they wanted to go ahead and address their specific concerns in there. Several of them with class sizes and social distancing. If I have this many students coming into my class, how will we maintain social distancing? Procedure enforcement, you heard a little bit of that with call to public. What if kids have masks or don't wear masks? What do you do in that particular situation? What about temperature checks? What if they refuse temperature checks? How do we do the temperature checks? There was a couple that had specific medical concerns that were more germane to the individual teacher. The time frame for the metrics. So what happens if we go green 1 week, 3 greens 1 week, and then next week's red, or 2 weeks are green and then 2 weeks are red? How do we move back and forth, or do we move back and forth? And then the synchronous learning was the issue that was also spoken about tonight, the notion of how do I work with students online and in person at the same time. So those would be the concerns that were addressed by staff. I'm going to move to the next slide. Next thing is the PPE. There's been a lot of statements about PPE, and so we wanted to provide the specifics of what we've purchased, what's been distributed to the sites, and what's on order. We do have some things on back order. We have 150 boxes of gloves. We've distributed 116 of those to the sites, or additional 116 to the sites, and we have 750 boxes on order. In terms of masks, we have just short of 10,000 masks in the warehouse. Those would be the paper masks, not cloth masks, and we've distributed 7,000 out to the sites. In some of these cases, the PPE is there because there weren't students in the classroom. They were not necessarily distributed at all the classrooms because there wasn't any students. There was just one person. If someone had ran out of something, they just had to ask, and we'd be more than happy to provide it to the individuals. Thermometers, 100 in the warehouse, and we put 350 out to each of the sites. Hand soap is 49 cases, 100 in the warehouse, 164 at the sites. Let's see, I'm running off my time. It might be easier for me to do this, so excuse me. Okay, sanitizers, the bulk, 68 cases in the warehouse, 190 refills. We have 200 refills that are on order. Sanitizer pumps, 500 in the warehouse, 400 at the sites, 200 on back order. Disinfectant, 21 cases in the warehouse, 135 cases distributed to the sites. Face shields, all 350 were distributed out to the sites. We have another 350 on back order. Disposable gowns, we had 700 that were distributed to the sites. We have 700 more that we're ordering. Most of those disposable gowns were initially targeted for health offices because they may have situations where kids would be in a situation where the nurse would need to, or the health assistant would need to have a gown. Sanitizer dispensers, 12 each in the warehouse, 100 distributed, 150 on back order. We have replacement batteries for the thermometers. We have 750 tubs of disinfectant wipes in the warehouse, 350 out to the sites, 600 on back order. Electrostatic sprayers, the delivery date is 9/9, and we have 13, which should put 1 at each site. I believe we have 2 going to the high school. We have 1 at the district office to cover all the sites. In those particular cases, just because we don't, I have to say this, I've said this several times, but I'm not sure everybody's understood or heard that. We still have bottle sprayers and we still have the same product that we're going to spray throughout all the classrooms. This just makes the job easier. And so we went ahead and ordered these. We have some handhelds that will be used on the buses. We've received those. This is just a case of demand. There was lots of people that needed toilet paper back in March. Just because you needed it, if it wasn't in the store, you're out of luck. So we ordered these back in May, and we've been waiting, or June, might have been June. We've been waiting for them, and as soon as they come, they will just make the job easier and quicker. But it's not that we're don't have materials to clean. We have the materials to clean. This is just going to make the job easier. Then we also have the technology cleaners for the Chromebooks. 75 in the warehouse, 192 bottles distributed out to the school sites. And so that just gives a perspective in terms of the PPE that we have ordered. Some of it's back ordered, and some has already been distributed to the sites. Again, they may have not been pushed all the way out because there's not kids in the classroom right now. They would be pushed out in time for when the kids would go to the classrooms, and that's just a matter of pushing them out when the time comes. Any questions on PPE?
Yes, I have a question. Is there any PPE that we are lacking that's part of our pandemic response plan?
Not off of top of my head. That's what drove what we're choosing to purchase. And so I say that as I'm trying to go through in my brain real quickly through the whole pandemic plan. But our intention from the get-go was to get the stuff that we said we'd have in the pandemic plan. Again, if you have only one teacher in a classroom, when we talk about rags, we now have 5 in there. If someone had a spill or something and needed to clean up, they could put it in the sink and ask for 5 more for the next day. But again, with no students in there, what's the clean piece that needs to be there? So, but off the top of my head, I'd say no. If I think of something, I'll let you know, but right now, I can't think of one that wasn't there. Other questions? Okay, I'll change the slide. The staff training and professional development. As I told you last week, we would have staff training and development. The ability to make quality staff training and development doesn't happen overnight, so we've had our CIA department as well as our marketing department working on these training videos as we speak. They'll be rolled out tomorrow. We'll have a COVID-19 school operations training video, temperature check, sanitation, recess, any number of different issues that people have been asking about. We have created swivel videos on how to use best practices with the swivel and the synchronous learning. In some cases, those are homegrown ones that we've made where we have teachers involved. In other cases, they are ones that are commercially available based on the company that has it. We also have a technology video on how to clean the laptops and the Chromebooks, and those will be getting ready to push out tomorrow. So all of that stuff, as we said before, would be done. It is being done, but it does take some time to go ahead and create that, and that's what we did this week. Next slide. Oops. So there's some confusion with ADHS, the Arizona Department of Health Services, and the metrics that we're talking about. There's 2 different aspects that go on with this, and I'll try to not lose people in the weeds on this, but I do want to explain it. So in the first particular situation with ADHS, they look at the 3 areas, the 3 benchmarks: cases, percent positivity, and COVID-like illnesses. So that's on the far left. Each one of those, based on the numbers, they will tell you if it's a minimal impact, you're in green, which means if you wanted to, you could have full in-person learning. Now, most districts, just for clarity on that, in case there's some parents thinking that means their child must come back, no, it just means we're available to go full in-person. If a parent still wants their child to stay home for virtual learning, they could go ahead and stay home for virtual learning in the minimal. In the moderate level, that particular one is what the state is calling hybrid. For us, that would be a movement into a situation where those that wanted to be in person would be in person, those that want to be virtual would be virtual. You probably would maybe see a little bit difference between moderate and minimal in terms of the number of kids that might choose not to stay on the virtual and come back to school. Right now, when you look at the moderate, based on a survey of parents, I think it was a week and a half ago, I would say the moderate, if we were to move into the moderate, you're about 55-45 as a district. I kind of talked about that last week. Each of the different schools has a slightly different number, but that's kind of where we're at. The substantial in the red would say you're only in virtual learning. So when you talk about cases, you're talking about number of cases over 100,000, but you also have a second metrics in there, which is there a decline over a 2-week period in the particular county, and this is at the county level, okay? For percent positivity, less than 5% would be minimal, 5 to 10% would be moderate, substantial will be above 10%. I'm going to come back to this one because this is where there's some confusion. And then COVID-like illnesses in the hospitals, they have the same, less than 5, 5 to 10, and above 5. And so this is, are you going to be in the red, the yellow, or the green? And then what ADHS does is each week on Thursday, which is why we're holding the meeting today, they release for each state, or excuse me, for each county in the state, how they're comparing against those particular benchmarks. So this is the latest version, moving the slide, as of this morning. And so for Pinal County, we had a slight uptick in the number of cases this past week. Therefore, we're no longer in decline in the number of cases over a 2-week period. Therefore, you have a red X up there on 1A. That slight uptick has resulted in more than 100 per 100 cases at least one of the 2 weeks. So when you take a look at the red dots to the far right, one of them shows you at 101 over 100,000, therefore it's red. The other one, I've asked for why they have it colored red versus green, but I have not yet gotten an answer. It is obviously much lower, but the standard is over a 2-week period, and so since one is above 100 and one is below 100, you do not have a green check, because over a 2-week period, you do not have both of them below 100. The second one is a percent positivity, and here's where the confusion comes in. You remember on the previous slide, it said the moderate level is 5 to 10. ADHS is determined, though, in order for you to move into a hybrid learning model, you must have 2 weeks below 7%. Last week, we were at 8.8. This week, I believe it's 6%. It doesn't show it up on the screen. Again, you do not have 2 weeks of movement below 7%. Therefore, you do not have a green check mark. You have a red X instead of a green check. In terms of percent for 2 consecutive weeks of COVID-like illnesses, you can see in both cases they are below the 10% line. One's at 5.1, I believe the other one is 2.4. So as of this morning, when this was released, we moved from last week we had green, red, green. We moved to 2 reds and a green. This particular next slide shows you what's occurring across the state of Arizona. And so this is what's happening in each of the counties, and you'll see Pinal has 2 reds and a green. Any questions on that particular information? Okay, so that's the end of the slideshow. You had asked for information on all 4 of those areas, and so I just wanted to provide that information to you in order to potentially ask any questions, or if there's anything that is discussed in executive session, you would have the opportunity of taking a look at it, and also provides the public a chance to take a look at it prior to the executive session. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You said aye, Pat? Okay, motion carries 5 to 0. Meeting at 8:12.
Yes.
So
I'm just trying to find my notes.
I'm gonna go ahead and we're open for discussion. So Bob, did you want to say something?
Yeah, as you know that I've voted against in-person instruction for the last couple of meetings, and I've always said that we should look at these metrics. If you look at the first metric that is now in the red, the dot that says August the 2nd, 101 out of 100,000 people. Well, Pinal County has about 450,000 people, which means we missed that red becoming a green by 5 or 6 people in the entire county. To me, that's so close that it's almost negligible, 6 people out of 450,000. If you look at number 2, which is the benchmark that we were looking at the last time, it's moving downward. And it's now, it doesn't say up there, but it's 6%. And if you look at numbers that have been reported so far for the next week, now those are unofficial and they're constantly changing, but they look to also be moving in the right direction. So even though the numbers here aren't the exact numbers I was looking for, I'm thinking we're close enough. And I'm tending to lean in that direction unless I hear an argument to convince me the other way.
All right, do I have anybody else that would like to say anything? Chad, I know you do. He's gonna try to keep it short, though.
As my fellow board members, we all know, and as you know, and as many of you have acknowledged, and we appreciate that, how difficult of a position that we as a board have been placed in. And likewise, it lends itself to a difficult position that parents are in, and our wonderful teachers, a difficult position that we're in. As Bob has pointed out, obviously we hope and pray and continue to try to do what we can as a community to decrease the risks and to make sure that that we as a community can be as safe as possible, with that responsibility being placed in each family's household for your choices and what the families do, as well as individuals and as well as organizations, businesses, schools included. We all have to take control of what we can take control of and make decisions that we feel are in the best interest of all the families and the students and the teachers. Noting that the metrics are quite close and recognizing that these metrics will likely fluctuate up and down, up and down. We can't submit ourselves to being constantly in a yo-yo, whether we're in class or whether we're not. We also recognize that the needs in this area are great, as has clearly been demonstrated by the number of people who've been so kind as to come and share their thoughts and views, or to share their views with us electronically. And as you guys have been able to see, there's lots of views on either side of this issue. We also know that of the concerns, and we note the concerns of the teachers, and we appreciate what they're doing to try to work with their administrators to figure out solutions. As a board, though, we recognize too that choice is important. Parents need to have a choice, teachers need to have a choice, and ultimately tonight we as a board needed to make a choice. And we have to make a decision. And once we make our decision, we would hope that our decision will then lend itself to allowing parents to make decisions and teachers to be able to make decisions that they need to make. So, can I make a motion then?
Anybody else? Any other discussion? Yeah, you can make a motion.
So, I move that we open up our schools on September 8th in our version of hybrid. Hybrid's being discussed a lot. Just want to clarify, in our version of hybrid, what we mean by that in Combs is that those parents who choose to send their kids may send their kids. Those parents who choose to keep their kids at home can keep their kids at home. That is our hybrid version. There's lots of other versions that have been out there, kids going on different days. Our version is 5 days a week. Those who choose to come can come, and those who choose to stay home can stay home. That's our version of hybrid. So I move that we would open in a hybrid for in-person in our version of hybrid on September 8th, the day after Labor Day. And that we will not close our school, any of our schools, after that date, unless adjustments, unless the health department directs us to make certain adjustments at a particular school site. Otherwise, we will stay open. Parents will have the choice to do what they need to do with that decision having been made, and teachers likewise will have the choice as what they need to do. And we would hope and appreciate that the teachers will do the best they can to figure out ways in which they can make this work. Our children need to be in school, so I move that we go to school in our version of hybrid starting September 8th, and that we do not close unless the health department directs particular changes at any particular site.
Okay, I'll need a second.
Second,
That was Steve.
yes.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.